Attention on deck. You're about to take command. Welcome to the bunker.
Welcome, everybody, back to The Bunker. I'm your host, Andy Burrows. And yes, if my voice does sound a little croaky, that is because it is 7 a.m. here on a Saturday morning in a wet, dreary, cold, damp England. However, my guest is literally the other side of the world. It's roasting hot. He's had to put the air conditioning on. He's in Perth, Australia. Ian Gage, how are you, sir? Good
I'm
afternoon.
very, good day, Andy. How you going?
I'm good, my friend. I'm good. No one can say that we're not committed to the cause, my man. It's the Washington Commander fan base is definitely far and wide, my friend. Ian, like I mentioned there, you are in Perth, Australia, right?
Yeah, correct.
Obviously, you don't sound Australian, so let's figure out how you got to Australia, and then we will get to how you are a Washington Commanders fan, my friend.
Okay, first off the bat, I was born in Exeter, the UK, and 30 years ago decided to pick up the family, uproot them, and move them to the other side of the world. So 30 years later, here I am, but still have the same passions for my local soccer team, Exeter, but also for Washington as well.
Gee, you ain't had
So
much luck over the last few years, then, Exeter and Washington. Jesus.
I've also picked Fremantle Dockers, who in their 27-year history have never won a flag. So I hold my hands up. I'm sorry, it's my fault.
Yeah, see, since you've got out there, my man. Ian, it is great to have you on the show, mate. I really appreciate you coming on. So how did you become a Washington Commanders fan? I'm guessing I sit down with so many people that obviously are from the UK, and obviously now you're out in Australia. Everyone's got a different story, and throughout this close season, and while we haven't got any football on the TV, we're going
Yeah,
to be talking to so many Washington fans across the world. How did the fandom start for you, my man?
it started in 1968, which at the time didn't mean everything, but it meant in 1983, I was 15 years old, hungry for sport, loved playing whatever the season was, cricket, football. And so in 1983, Channel 4 back in the UK decided to show the first Super Bowl. And iconically, there were the Miami Dolphins versus a team called the Washington Redskins. As soon as I saw that, done, done and dusted. So my mates went for the Dolphins because they were the favourites to the game. But I stuck fat and I was it. I was Washington was as soon as I saw that logo, I don't know what it was, but I just connected with that team. And then I think, was it 83? The name John Riggins came
Wow.
in and just scored that touchdown. And from then on, I was Washington. That was it, done and dusted. And I was also at the age of a golden age. I was lucky,
Lucky bastard.
15. Yeah. And then at 16, I went through the heartbreak. I think we lost against the Raiders. So I tasted both ends. But then again, 88 and 92, um, it was just a golden era to be a Washington fan. And I thought going forward, this is how it's going to be. Uh, and then Dan Snyder came along.
Oh yeah, we try not to mention him too much now on this show, as you've probably heard since
Foldable.
you've
He's the
listened.
name.
Yeah, he is, mate. He is. How did you find it though, growing up, obviously in the UK? We're going to get into this show is going to be a lot about obviously they've just announced that the NFL is going to Australia in
Yes.
2026. Yesterday, it just got announced that the NFL in 2025 is going to Ireland. See, but way before we got to where we are now, which me and you are going to get into and discuss, because a lot of fans have got in touch with me over the past 24 hours talking about the international games. And I asked a question yesterday to my friends stateside how they feel about the NFL literally being worldwide now. But when you were growing up, Ian, the content wasn't what it was today. I've spoke to so many people that listen to the NFL in the UK on Armed Forces Radio. Then, like you say, I remember I grew up watching it on
Yeah.
Channel 4. What was it like for you with your friends and stuff like that when you told them that you were into the NFL?
Well, there were three of us, so we were watching a game that was completely alien to us. Helmets, pads, um, trying to understand the game, which took years, but we just watched the game for a win or a loss. The techniques of it, we didn't play it, so we were just sort of watching something on the screen. So the first few years were really tough, but then once you get into it and you make the effort, I mean, I'd have to wait for probably a Wednesday for the Daily Express or whatever it was to
Hmm.
publish anything like that. But Channel 4 took it on board. So all of a sudden, we were starting to see live games growing up, and obviously Super Bowls was what you look forward to, just like the Cup final at
Mm,
Wembley.
mm.
I was fortunate in '92 to see the Redskins play. I think it was the 49ers at Wembley.
Wembley Stadium, yeah.
Yeah, and although it was an exhibition match, just that felt really good. The only disappointment that day, I didn't get to see Joe Montana, I think, play.
Hmm. Yeah, he
He
didn't play. They rested him.
he was injured. So, as far as the game coming over here, if it was the other way around and AFL was going to America, I'd be disappointed that I was losing a game. To,
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I spoke to, so for those that don't know, you probably do now if you're listening to this or watching this, the NFL is going to Melbourne, Australia in
yeah,
2026, and the Rams are going to be the designated home team.
home.
Obviously, we don't know who they're going to be playing yet. We won't know that for a while yet. Um, what is your view on that, Ian? It's great for you. I mean, hopefully you'll get to go to the game. You might have 20 of us stand at your house, but it's gonna be, it's gonna be. I think it's like you say. You would be. I've spoke to a lot of Washington fans and NFL fans in general. I put a tweet out yesterday saying, "What do you think of the NFL going so internationally?" Because if you look at it now, you've got the UK, you've got England, now Ireland, you've got Germany, Spain, Mexico, now add Australia into the mix. First of all, what's it going to be like for you out there in Australia? And what's the reaction been out in Australia to the NFL coming out there? Because we've had a couple of fans, the Down Under guys have come on this show. They live down in Australia, and their fandom just blew me away. A lot like when I speak to people, probably when you speak to people being English and living in Australia, people they're always surprised by our fandom. What's the reaction been down under to the NFL coming out in 2026?
Massive, absolutely massive, especially Melbourne, as Melbourne is Australia's capital for sport. So it
Mm,
doesn't matter what sport goes, they're hungry for sport. That will be 100,000. It will be a sellout.
wow.
Um, the only thing I can see is whether the players during a season, say for example, Washington is probably a 24-hour flight.
Yes,
Um,
23 hours from me from here to get to you. So I can imagine the States.
is that
Yeah, I'm
without a
guess.
layover?
Yeah, that's with a layover. I don't know. Do they fly direct from I'm guessing it's got to be not direct.
No, so you're going to have a layover, maybe 2 or 3 hours at Dubai, somewhere
Yeah.
like that, Qatar. So it's the players in a season. How do their bodies, like after the game, they're going to be cramped, muscle ache. I don't know the funding for their own planes. Will they have oxygen on board that they can, get the body back
Hmm.
into? Do they lose a few days training when they get there? If Washington's having a good season, do I really want to uproot them to come halfway around here for a game that I'd love to see? Don't get me wrong, all Washington fans would, but how does that affect the players? Not so much the fans. My first thing is Washington getting back to where we were this year.
Hmm.
Does I'm a hindrance? I'm not sure. LA Rams is only 15. So any of the eastern state teams, western, sorry, in America, flying to the eastern states of Australia, the time is different.
Right.
Um, we'll work that out. But generally, like everyone's embracing it. You've got to register now for tickets, and we're talking over a year away.
Yeah, I signed up.
Yeah,
Like I said to you when I was speaking to you on the DM sorting out the show, I've always, 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 it's been one of my big dreams for years and years to go to Australia. if by some chance, I don't know when if the Commanders are due to play the Rams in 26. It's way too early for me to even be figuring that out on a Saturday morning. But
Yeah.
like you say, 100,000 people are going to be in attendance. What's been the reaction down under with the press and amongst your friends, amongst your Australian friends that you've obviously made in the years that you've been there? What's the reaction been from people, the fans in Australia, to it coming over?
Yes, I think anyone that follows it, it's like you don't really hear about them during the season, but obviously as finals come, we've got various podcasts, I think American Aces and a few others that generally stoke it up. You guys do a fantastic effort. So there's content out there. SEN Radio in Australia uh, with Jared Waitley, they're fully on board. He goes over and I can listen to any game on a Monday morning through SEN. So I
Right.
can go to work and have the game on. So yeah, everyone's excited for it because Australia is closely linked to America. Whatever a lot of Americans do, we do that. Whereas the UK is the big brother, and they
Hmm.
kind of rebel. We take on board a lot of what Australia does with the NBA. You know, they love putting a shirt on. They love the merch. They love the betting side of the game. So it really sort of hones in on that for Australian fans. And I'm sure, like if the Washington come, I know a few guys that I follow on Twitter, especially over that side, they'd fully embrace, you know, the game over being over there. The only thing is an oval. So all the grounds here are designed for AFL,
Hmm.
where you have a rectangle pitch. So how does like if you're watching it on telly, doesn't
Yeah.
matter where it is, all I'm looking at is a telly. So it doesn't matter if it's in Spain, Ireland, I'm basically watching that. Whereas an AFL, if you're there, what will the experience be like? It should be brilliant, but
Hmm.
you all different size pitch that you're going to put the rectangle. How far away are you going to be from it?
Yeah. Ian, what's it like for you watching games? I mean, people say to us all the time over here in the UK, so a late game in the States will start at 1:15 a.m. for me on a Monday morning, and me and Scouse and Scotty and all the UK boys, we all stay up and watch it. What time do the games start for you, and how the hell do you cope? Do you watch them before you go to what? What's the time zone for? It must be so weird for you being. It must be good because I think don't you get to watch them like quite early in the morning?
Yeah, so Philly game. I set the alarm for 3 a.m. and the game kicked off at 8 4 a.m. So it is what it is. If you want to get up, you want to see your team, sacrifice that you do. A lot of the games are roughly between 4 a.m. and 7 a.m. So
On a
I'm quite
Monday.
yeah, Monday morning. So I'm quite flexible where I can watch the game and then at say 10 a.m. in the morning, go off and do, you know, a few hours work and then suffer the next day. I don't mind the games if they're sometimes they can be sort of 12 a.m. So
Mhm.
it's or yeah, 1 a.m. something like that, because then you can go to bed and just wake up a bit later. But I'm used to that in all sports. You know,
Mm.
following I've got to get up and listen at sort of 4 a.m. in the morning or um, AC Milan. I follow them as well. It's what you do following sport in the world. It's a
Yeah.
sacrifice.
Obviously, we've got the Ashes at the end of next year, this year as well. That's going to be interesting for you being over in Australia when England come and take on Australia.
No, it's never because we get absolutely pumped. Um, I'm here 30 years now and I'm still English. I can remember sitting on my grandfather's knee listening to a crackly radio in the 70s and listening to Australia pump England. Yeah, they're the enemy for me. And yeah, it's been tough. I think we've had maybe two series wins over here in the 30
Yeah,
years.
the last one I remember was the Alistair Cook one when we went over and won. Ian, what's with your now with your Australian friends? What
Yeah.
did that, how do they I get it all the time over here with my rugby mates. They're like, "Oh, how do you watch the NFL? It's just rugby without pads." What's the feeling over in Australia? Obviously, the AFL is huge, absolutely huge. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't watch loads of it, but I know it's probably one of the most brutalist. I can't figure out if they kick it through a goal or then they use their hands. I guess I'm the equivalent of what people say to me about the NFL and rugby. What's
Yeah.
that? What do your AFL? What do your AFL friends over there say to you when you try and convince them to watch the NFL?
So the AFL is a juggernaut. It's massive over here, and they will not allow space on the back page or on a radio for any other sport. So at the moment, they're bringing the season forward. They make sure that if there's rugby league or whatever sport, there's a major story with the AFL. Um, but if I relate to my son, Daniel, and his friend Henry, they're both keen AFL fans, but they're just starting to come over. I think Henry was quite like the Detroit Lions. Um, and my son, I'm hoping, because he's been used to coming out of his bedroom and me moaning about the Washington for 30 years, whereas the Hail Mary that
Oh,
Noah Brown caught, I went through the roof. He stopped and looked and then said, "What the hell is going on?" So now they love it because SEN and like I say, you can go on Foxtel, KO Sports, whatever. You can get access. So if you want it, sports or wherever you want it to be, and if you want
mm,
to pick, because they like the fantasy side of it. So anyone that does the draft fantasy side of the NFL, that's your core fan base as well
hmm.
because they're interested, and then they pick a team. And I suppose at the last few years, it's been Patriots. Anyone that's kind of winning, I suppose,
Hmm.
people want success instantly. They don't want to pick a poor team. They're picking the star players that are in their draft teams, and that's the connection. Unless you have someone in the family that has embraced the team, you might follow suit them. But
Yeah. I mean, Ian, what do you say to the fan? I had a few people reach out to me on Twitter or X or whatever the bloody hell we're calling it nowadays. Too legit to quit said he hates the idea of the NFL going internationally. What do you think, say to these American fans? And obviously, we've got a lot that listen to this. Our co-host Jesse, he's American. I mean, he doesn't mind it. He loves it. He can't wait to. He hopefully wants to come over to the UK if the Commanders ever come back. What do you say to the American fans that are against the international games? We talked about how good it is for Australia and England and Ireland, but do you get the side of the opinion when the Americans come out and fair play to them? Because I know a lot of my friends have got season tickets at the Commanders, George and Chris and Keith, and now Jesse's got his seat. I've got a season ticket at Washington. I don't get to use it obviously as much, but what do you say to the American fans? Do you get like their point of view, and they say they don't like the fact that the NFL is now going internationally a lot?
well, like I said, they probably lose a game within their membership, and they also have their team having to fly out. But I mean, the games now are becoming global, whether we like it or not. The
Hmm.
AFL's trying to do the same. You're trying to connect with a fan base. You're trying to sell merchandise. Like Jaden probably is the number one selling shirt in the world now.
Definitely
Well,
is in the UK.
yeah, well, Washington need to like jump on board because I struggle to get merchandise over here in Perth. So and also like Washington's sold out, completely sold out of jerseys. Um, I suppose they want to protect the game, the fan. It is American. They probably don't look further than America. It might be a bit insular in the game is American. It always has been. But there's a fan base that absolutely crave the NFL.
Mm,
And if it can be shared and it doesn't affect the players, you can bring in extra revenue. Why not? I mean, I wouldn't worry if the AFL was to flip over. And I love seeing English soccer teams come over here because it's a chance for us in a once in a lifetime. I think AC Milan played Roma at Perth, 60,000 sellout
wow.
because all the Italians came out, all your soccer fans came out. There's a hunger for live sport. And
Mm,
we have the stadiums now around Australia that will fill the grounds up.
yeah.
So yeah, I suppose it's their baby, and they don't want to let it go. You can see after games how passionate fans are becoming. Um, it's yeah, it's hard.
Mm.
They'll come back to it, I would imagine.
Yeah, no, I get it, mate. I do. I get it. And like I said, I spoke to some of them on Twitter. I said we were gonna get into it a little bit on the show. Ian, let's talk a little bit about the season that's just gone. I've said this a few times now on the show. Easily in my fandom, last season that's just finished a couple of weeks ago was easily the, like you said earlier, you were very fortunate you grew up in the Super Bowl era and you got to see some great teams. I've never seen anything like that. I started supporting this organization, the Washington Redskins, then in 1997, beginning of 1998, when I spent a lot of time in Washington DC. last season for me was easily the most fun I've had, the most excitement I've had, that like the closest I've ever felt to being like, oh, this is what normal football fans have felt. This is what the Patriots have felt. This is what the Chiefs. This is like. I'm not talking about ownership. I'm not talking about off-field scandal. I'm not talking about an injured quarterback, and we're on our third of the season. Last season for me was easily the best football season I've had. Obviously, Jaden has now just been given the offensive rookie of the year at the NFL awards a couple of nights ago out in the States. I mean, what did you make of what you seen last season, going from winning 4 games the season before under Ron Rivera to Dan
Yeah.
Quinn now coming in and taking us to what we were 60 minutes away from a
Yeah.
Super Bowl? What did you make of what you saw last season, my friend?
So, like, I think for so many years now, we've been just meandering. We've had glimpses and we've had hope. Every season there's hope, and you just cling to that. And then the first game of the season was it Tampa Bay? We lost, so
Yeah.
you kind of think, okay, here we go. But then we strung 4 wins together, and all of a sudden you dared to dream, or you thought, are you teasing me? Are we going to go back to? But Jaden was given freedom. Um, and then for me, the season changed on that Hail Mary. All of a sudden, the belief in the team and just the fan base, everything felt this could be our time now, which is going to affect us next season because now everyone's going to be coming for us. So the run, I didn't see this coming, especially
No,
like
none of us did.
season. And then all of a sudden, it was just a wave. We got on the wave. There's such a belief within the team. The confidence grew. And I didn't think we were going to beat the Detroit Lions. You kind of you've got that glimmer of hope, but you keep thinking like after every other season, this will be it. This will
Mm.
be it. Whereas it didn't. It just kept growing and growing and growing. And now we're all excited for next season. It can't come around quick enough.
No,
So
honestly, I mean, it really can't. I mean, we're already looking forward to the draft and stuff. Where do you want to see Washington improve in whether it be the draft, whether it be free agency? In your opinion, I mean, we spoke about it a lot on last week's show. We want to. I think both sides of the ball we need to definitely. There's definitely holes to fill. I mean, me and Jesse got into it, and I mean, Jesse and Scouse went backwards and forwards. One, was saying, look, we need to sort the offense out, and I think Jesse was like, our defense 100% needs to be sorted out. In your opinion, Ian, what do you want to see as we move forward into next season and try? I mean, if we try and build on this season, then we've really got to make the Super Bowl. But you know, what I mean,
yeah,
what do you want to see as, in your opinion, the Washington Commanders do for next season?
well, I'm hopefully trusting the process that we've now got the right people in the right spots. We can learn from last year. I think defensively, I'd like to see some improvement. I don't know whether we're in the window now of do we try and go out and plug holes in like the trades
Hmm.
to now, or do we the draft? We still continue like over here in the AFL, you have the draft system where if you're at the bottom of the league, you draft youngsters, and then by 5 years' time, they're in the system, they played the game, that's your window,
Right.
and you hope that this is your time. And it just goes on a circle. So the best teams don't always win. Are we in that window now? Is that, yeah, do we need to sort of get high end talent in now
Hmm.
to take us forward and just take this opportunity because it doesn't come around that often, and every season's tough. You're not guaranteed anything. We can look back at Sean Taylor, Kirk Cousins, RG3. We've had the players, but for whatever reason broke down. Things have happened. We don't know what's going to happen. We
No,
hopefully
the schedule's brutal next season as
it is.
well.
Yeah, and do we keep fit? They need to focus probably on the players' fitness levels. Just make sure that's injuries. We can get through a season. And is it plugging gaps with high-end talent now? We've got the cap space,
Mm.
uh, or do we draft? I think what do we pick? 29 first pick,
Yeah,
20.
28, 29, something like that. I mean, like Jesse said on the show last week, he said, it's what falls to you at that stage of the draft. I mean, we're not used to it. We're used to thinking, God, we're in the top five. This is
Yeah,
uncharted territory for all of us as fans. I mean, Jesse was saying, he thinks we could maybe draft back, and it's going to be. But I think the good thing about us now is we are a attractive proposition to anyone. I mean, there's
Yeah,
all this Cooper Cup talk in the week. I'm not sure I'm on that train with Cooper Cup coming to Washington, but the fact that we even get mentioned in this now, it proves, like, just to your point and what you said,
yeah,
is how far we've come now. We are an attract. People are going to want to come and play here, and people are going to
yeah,
want to play with Jaden Daniels as our quarterback. I think that's we've got way more many selling points now than we've ever
yeah,
had. And like you make a great point that you've got to strike while the iron's hot, because you don't know when this is going to come around. Just because we were one game away from the Super Bowl this season doesn't mean anything's going to be guaranteed next season. I mean, I think the minimum requirement now is we have to try and win the NFC East first. Let's
yeah,
try and win that and put ourselves in a better position, maybe where we're not on the road so much in the playoffs. If we can have a home game, etc., etc. This fan base, more than anything, could you imagine the home game for a playoff game in Washington?
yeah. I think if you look at the Philly model, they're probably 4 or 5 years of
Mm,
continually doing the windows now. Monday will be a massive game for them, and if it comes off, you can look at that process and see where they went wrong, what they did right. I'm hoping the players are hungry. They've tasted it.
mm,
This season should hurt. It should burn. You were that close, and it is a game of inches. Um, it's hope they go away, they have a good break, spend time with family, come back, and then really work hard and trust the process. This
mm,
season, the process worked. Let's hope that next season we continue, with better players as well, to take us forward, and not just 1 or 2 years, but this needs to be a 10-year plan. We've got to put the foundations in now and continue. Washington's massive. It's a huge club. The stadium talk excites me. You look at the water running through, and it's just been left to sort of decay, where everything else on field is working. With the players and the staff and that lot. Now we need to improve, the facilities and become a massive club and continue to grow. Just don't
mm.
stagnate.
No, one of the big talking points, Ian, this week, Josh Harris has come out and said, look, the commander's name is 100% staying. Myself, Scouse, and Jesse got into this on Monday's show. Obviously, we mentioned right at the start of the show, you grew up, and we all did, a
Yeah,
Washington Redskin fan. It's split opinion. A lot of people reaching out to me on Twitter or X, whatever we're calling it these days, in the week, saying that a lot of people are like, "Yep, we're happy. We're the Commanders." I mean, Big Doug, a good friend of ours, tweeted out yesterday. Look, no one mentions the name when we're winning. I mean, it didn't even come to my mind the whole of last season. We didn't speak about it once on our shows. Obviously, I'm sure you listened to us, but you've been listening and know that we're very proud Washington Redskins fans. What did you make of the talk of being someone that's growing up in the UK, now in Australia, Ian, obviously a Washington Redskin fan? What did you make of when you heard the comments from Josh Harris coming out saying, look, it's Commanders, it's staying Commanders. We're going to pay homage to our heritage and our past within games, whether that be throwback jerseys. We're not sure
yeah,
about the old logo. I personally don't think the old logo will come back. What did
no.
you make of what Josh Harris said this week with the Commanders? And that is it. Washington Redskin name talk done.
Like you said, he was clever not to mention the word once.
Never did
Um,
he?
we started off as the Boston Braves.
Mm,
There's a name. There's a generation that have always been Redskins, um, and I don't like saying the word Commanders. I can't get used to it yet, but I think another winning season next year, um, it'll just evolve. Things change. We don't like to see that. I'd love a retro round where teams one game every year, the whole league wore retro ones. So whether that meant just on the helmet, the logo, somewhere discreetly, I get what you said about like the Nike. You see
hmm
that, you know exactly what it is. I mean, you could see the logo on a helmet or on the back, but you don't necessarily need to say it. Like
hmm
we all know what that logo means. Whether the players would feel passionately, like putting that on because it is very iconic. Um, but they're growing up, and playing around the Commanders now in the
mm,
dressing room, probably the Commanders. And me as an older person, this generation, probably need to always have it in a really good place in your heart, but now embrace going forward, and it's not going to change.
Mm.
So, do you stay bitter or kind of fight it, or you just embrace it and just hopefully on field success? This discussion doesn't happen anymore. If we're winning the Super Bowl, we're not mentioning the name.
No, no, we're winning it as the Washington Commanders. And look, we were 60 minutes
Yeah,
away from winning it. I've said this 1,000 times, and you probably heard it and seen me on Twitter. I'll always be proud to be a Redskins fan. I'll never shy away from talk. People want to talk about it, I'll happily talk about it. I'm very fortunate. I get invited on a few shows over here and around the world, and they ask me, "How did you become an NFL fan?" I'm
yeah,
so proud to talk about my NFL and the Washington Redskins. I will preach about the NFL till the cows come up. It's my favorite sport in the entire world. But I'm now at the stage where I've just had the best. September to January were the best of my fandom, and that was as a commander. You know what I mean?
yeah,
That wasn't as a Washington Redskin. And what I'd love doing is what I do now. I'm very fortunate. I get to sit down and talk to people like yourself who have grown up in a Super Bowl era. And I'll sit down, and one of my favorite things to do is listen to people tell me stories about the Redskins and how they become fans of the Redskins and the seat cushion game. And I was at this playoff game and I saw us win this Super Bowl. And I'll never get bored of doing that. So and that's what I say to people. I will never ever get bored of doing that. But there comes a time in history where you have to draw a line in the sand and go, look, we're the Washington Commanders now. Let's embrace this. And look, I'm not here to put anyone down that goes, nope, well, I'll always call them the Redskins. That's fine. Like Fred Smoot said to us when we had Fred Smoot on, you can call us the Washington Wankers. It won't
yeah.
matter as long
No,
as we're winning. So, Ian, I 100% get what you're saying, mate. I really do. But, Ian, let's just finish up, my friend. The Super Bowl is this weekend.
yeah,
That's 11 p.m. kickoff, I think, for me here in the UK. What time does
yeah.
the Super Bowl start for you?
So if it's 11 p.m. for you, just add on to 7 a.m. in the morning.
That's not too bad.
So
No work on
it is.
Monday?
That's a perfect time to crack a beer.
Yeah, imagine
But
what does the family think when you're just like hooting and hollering at like 7 o'clock in the morning? I mean, if we like, especially the Detroit game, I'll be tempted to open a beer at 7 a.m. I'm not going to lie in.
no, I would. Yeah, they kind of think they're used to me with all sports,
Hmm.
so like, it's that time. I mean, for me, since '92 to probably last season, we've had Washington a Super Bowl every year, but
Mm.
it was playing Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
That was my Super Bowl because we were that poor. The only game I ever wanted to win was to beat Dallas. Didn't matter about the season, beat Dallas. But now going to this Super Bowl, it's Philly. I don't know if I can.
I want Kansas City to win all day long.
Yeah, and I mean it's a bit like Man City, isn't it? The
Mm.
Kansas City Chiefs are becoming, the juggernaut of,
The NFL.
the.
Mm.
Do you want them to win three historically? Yeah, get the three out of the way, but we're not going to hear the end of it if Philly win.
Oh,
It's
dude,
going to
no. Oh, God, no. I might have to turn my phone off, and yeah,
be.
geez, it's going to be unbearable. Ian, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. I know this was a little tricky to organise. It's now 7:35 a.m. here in your native England. Go back and enjoy the rest of your day in the sunshine. I'm not
Yeah,
jealous at all. I'm going to go and stand around and watch my local team, Dunstable Town, play in the
yeah,
pouring rain. So my heart bleeds you, Ian. But first of all, I really appreciate you listening to our show all
yeah,
the way in Australia. It always blows our minds when we hear from people. I've had people contact me from Australia. We've got a couple of guys that listen to us in New Zealand, mate. Thank you so much for tuning in, man. It's great to speak to a Washington Commanders fan so far away.
yeah. No, I appreciate the content that you, Jimmy, and I reckon Scouse is just getting out of bed now. He probably would have had a
Scouse,
good
it's
night.
7:30 in the morning. He's not out of bed yet.
He's,
Jesse, God knows what Jesse's doing right now. I don't know. I dread to think he's probably still drunk.
but we appreciate the content and we crave it. It's what we need. So, thanks for inviting me and really appreciate listening. And yeah, go Redskins.
No worries, mate. Yeah, you might want to warn the family though. If it is the Commanders, we're all going to be trying to stay at your house when it comes to Australia. Okay, just gonna.
You've then got another 4 hour flight though.
That's
So
dude.
just
That's cool, dude. We'll make a weekend of it, mate. We'll buy a shitload of beers when we all get together as Commanders fans. It's always a good time. But Ian, thanks so much for joining us, mate. Keep in
appreciate it.
touch. I hope Exeter, their season. How are they doing this season anyway, Exeter?
Yeah, we got Nottingham Forest in the FA Cup this weekend. So
Oh, they might. Yeah, mate. I'm a Tottenham fan. Say no more.
Spurs, Spursy.
Yeah, say no more,
What
mate.
we do.
Yeah,
It's what we do.
it's what we do. It's what we do, mate. We've got some stupid Australian in charge of us right now who hasn't got a clue what he's doing. Tell your Australian mates they can have him back.
Yeah, can't defend.
No,
How
mate,
not defend?
we can't, mate. We're really bad. But Ian, thanks so much, mate. We're going to be back next week, where myself, Jesse, and Scouse will be back. I'm going to try and any Commanders fan listening to this that wants to come on the show, no matter where you are in the world. Just I reached out to Ian and said, look, I'd love to speak to you down there in Australia. Any fan that wants to come on and talk about their fandom and the season and Washington, we'll always have you on the show. So just drop me a DM on Twitter at Washington UK Fan. You can find us at Commander Bunker. Check us out on YouTube is the best place to find us. Just type in the Bunker Podcast. Scroll down, you'll see the little Washington Commanders logo. But we'll be back next week talking more Commanders. But Ian, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Enjoy the sunshine. Again, I am not jealous at all of you over there in the heat. But ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of The Bunker. I've been your host, Andy Burrows. Till next time, everybody. Bunker down. Stay safe.